Welcome back. Super excited moving forward. In this lesson, I'm going to demonstrate how to install the new and powerful Android Q. Preview version is the beta version. There are several ways you can install, and I'm going to demonstrate most likely one of the easiest method for you. So once you have Android open, I'm going to jump right in and start this particular demonstration. Once you have the Android open and make sure all the updates are completed, all you have to do is follow about 7 steps. And let me bring those steps up. I've already written them down. So the first step is within the Android Studio, you need to click Tools and SDK Manager. So I'm going to minimize this. I'm going to go up to Tools and then click on your Software Development Kit or SDK Manager. This opens up a dialog box, and you will notice that there's an option now showing called Android Q Preview. Well, before we actually click on this, let's navigate to SDK Tools. As soon as I click on this, you need to make sure that your Android emulator is upgraded or updated to the latest version. So at this point in time, you will notice that in my case here, the Android emulator version is installed 27.3.10, whereas the update available is 29.0.11. So there's definitely a newer update. So what I need to do is first update the Android emulator. Make sure you click on this. This places a checkbox. And you will notice on the bottom it'll say apply and OK. Now before you actually go ahead and click on OK and apply, if you click on show package details, this kind of gives you the additional details or added details for this. So if I scroll down for Android emulator, that's about it. It's just the update that is available. I can click on now apply, or I can take a shortcut and just kind of shows you that there's a downloadable icon as well. So I'm going to go ahead and click on apply. This is going to give me the confirmation dialog box that the following components will be installed. It's the Android emulator version 29.0.11, the estimated size of this, and so on. So I'm going to go ahead and click on OK. Simply accept the agreement. If you want to read it, go ahead. You can do so. Click Next. And this is going to now download the actual zip file, the package, and update your emulator. And this is important, by the way. You need to make sure this is done. So let's give it a few seconds. All right, great. So once this is downloaded and the emulator is updated, just click on Finish. And now you will notice that right next to Android emulator is going to say the latest version, which is 29.0.11. Perfect. And likewise, of course, you can take a look at all the rest of these. If they need to be updated, you could do so. But I'm just going to go ahead and leave it at updating the Android emulator to the latest version. Let's go ahead. Let me bring up the next step here. So step 2 in the SDK Platforms tab, select Show Package Details at the bottom of the window, which we did. And of course, below Android Q Beta, select a system image such as Google APIs, Intel, and again, this depends on whichever system or image you wish to install. So let's minimize this. So let's scroll down and see if we can find the actual, or scroll up. Let's go to SDK Platforms. And within this particular tab, SDK Platforms, let's click on Show Package Details, and you will notice it's going to display or expand the Android Q Preview. Now from within this, you can, of course, install either the Intel image or the Google API Intel Atom 64 image, and so on. And again, depends on what it is that you wish to install. So I'm going to go ahead and select the Android SDK Platform Q, which is currently obviously not installed. I'm going to go ahead and install the software development kit. Again, this is if you need to start creating apps based on this particular platform. I'm also going to install the system image. I'm going to choose the Google API Intel x86 Atom system image. If you have a 64-bit version, you can also choose this option as well. So once I have a couple of these options selected, I'm going to go ahead and click on Apply. And of course, the new dialog box appears and just kind of tells me that the following components will be installed. The estimated download size is about 1.1 gigabytes. Okay, so I wanted to show you this because it's fairly large. So keep that in mind once you're installing the Android Q. So I'm going to go ahead and then, of course, click OK. And this is, again, it's going to download and start the same process over and again. So let's give it a few, maybe a minutes or so, and then I'm going to come back to this. Great. So once all of the requested components have been installed, which is, of course, the Android Q, Android SDK, and the Android or the Google API's Intel x86 Atom system image. So these are the two packages that we requested, and they were finally installed. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Finish, and you will notice that the two components will say installed and installed. Great. So let's go ahead and click on OK. Perfect. Let's bring up our notes here. So our step 5 has been done. Step 6 is after install is finished, we need to select tools and then of course bring up our AVD manager and follow the instructions to create a new disk image, right? So be sure to select the device definition, step 7, that does not include Play Store, and select Q for the system image. So let's go ahead and do step 6 first. Let's navigate to Tools and AVD Manager. So let's minimize this. On the menu, click on Tools. Let's go ahead and bring up the AVD Manager here, and this is going to list all the devices, right, that you can choose. And all we're doing here is basically creating either a new virtual device so we can run Android Q in it. So let's go ahead and click on Create Virtual Device, a little plus sign at the bottom here. As soon as I do so, a new dialog box appears. And from the category side, I'm going to select phone, which is by default selected. Let's scroll down and see if we can find the type of phone, right, that we want to use as the emulator or the virtual device. You can use Pixel 2, you can use Nexus S, you can use any one of these if you choose to do so. So by default, Pixel 2 is highlighted. You can, of course, choose Pixel 3, for example, or 3 XL or XL. And again, it's really your choice, but we need to make sure that the Q is installed. So we'll choose or we'll select, let's say, Pixel 3. And the Play Store icon, by the way, is just an icon that shows that if you choose Pixel 2, you will have the Play Store icon with it too. But keep in mind, if I bring up my notes here again, you will notice that be sure to select the device definition that does not include Play Store. Okay, so what this means is I need to select a device that does not include this icon. So I'm going to go ahead and select Pixel 3 and then click Next, and here is going to give you the system image. You'll notice that the release name Q shows up because you were able to install Pixel 3 on Pixel 3 Android Q, which is an x86, and the target is Android 9. It's going to use the Google APIs for Android 9 Plus. So on the right, it kind of shows you a little bit of details that it just recommends these images because they run the fastest and support Google APIs. I'm going to go ahead and click on Next. I can give this a name. By default, it just says Q, Pixel 3 API Q, right? But you can change it to any name you choose to do so. So it shows that Pixel 3, here are the dimensions, the Q itself, Android 9, on an x86 portrait landscape, you can set up the orientation, the emulator performance, you can choose automatic or select hardware or software, but I'm going to leave it as automatic. The device frame is enabled device frame. If you click on advanced settings, for instance, just so that I can demonstrate and show it to you, it just kind of shows you the front camera, the back camera, and other areas that you can take a look at. So let's click on hide and click finish. So a few more steps, right? That's all you need to do to set up your Pixel 3 API Q. Great. So congratulations, you have now configured the virtual device. And of course, the last step is to open this device up so you can actually see. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the action or the play button, launch this AVD in the emulator. And what this is going to do is going to eventually launch the emulator. On the bottom, you'll notice it just says starting ABD. A couple of processes are running. So just be patient if nothing happens immediately, right? Okay, so just follow the status bar on the bottom of what's really happening. So give it a few seconds and it's going to launch the emulator for you. All right, great. So looks like we have an option is still in the process of launching. Okay, so we'll just give it a couple more minutes. Awesome. So if I come down here, perfect. There it is. So congratulations once again. You've successfully installed the Android Q SDK, the Android Q image. You've also successfully created the virtual device. And now you'll notice that it shows up on the actual emulator as well. So from here on out, you can now, of course, start to develop apps and kind of view them in the emulator as well. So you'll notice that the Pixel is now starting, right? The emulator has started. So this is a Pixel 3 API, right? For Android Q is now running on this Pixel 3. And perfect. This takes a couple of seconds, right? Based on the emulator and based on your actual hardware accelerator and performance of your laptop as well, by the way, okay? Just keep that in mind. So here it is. This is now running Android Q on Pixel 3. Perfect. I hope this helps. Practice with this. If you have any questions, post in the comments area or discussion area. I'll be glad to answer. And with this, let's move to the next lesson.